Hey, nice Atypical Daydream t-shirt.
Thanks. It's my favorite podcast.
Mine too. But where can I get a t-shirt?
It's easy. The link is in the show notes.
That is easy. I'm gonna go get one right now.
That's a great idea.
Thanks. Bye.
You bet. Stay cool.
My friends got out with me, and we were all standing around, and I was in kind of the center of this fiasco. And I look up, and I'm surrounded by 8 or 9 locals just watching me throw up.
Hello, my atypical daydreamers. Welcome to the show. My guest today is Chris Robinson. He's a lifelong skater and an old friend of mine. Once upon a time, young Chris set off from San Francisco to Florida to become a certified sailor, and somewhere along the way, had one too many bottles of rum.
So this is a rhetorical question then, and because we grew up in the same decade, really, right? 80s maybe. I'm from 76. That's when I was born. I have this weird feeling that the word plethora, the only time I ever had heard that word was in the movie Three Amigos. And then after that, I started to use it all the time. And now the only time I ever hear the word plethora is people in our generation who use it, and I never hear it any other way. So I feel like Martin Short and Steve Martin and Chevy Chase, and then the guy who actually uses that word enriched my vocabulary. We went and looked it up, man, and for weeks after that movie came out, we would say it all the time because I don't hear anyone. My kids don't know what that word means. I'd moved out to San Francisco when I was 19 from Austin with this desire to go pro and become like, just like actors move to Hollywood to try to become a film star. A lot of skaters back then would go out to the West Coast, to California. Maybe New York sometimes would be okay, but a lot of people migrated to places like San Francisco and LA to try to see if they had the right stuff and go pro, right? And so I moved out there with a friend when I was 19, and the first thing you do is go find some job to help pay the rent, and then spend most of your time with this activity, hoping to make a breakthrough or whatever. So I was living in San Francisco for a while, and I'd had 2 roommates by then. First roommate was Zach Hudson. We moved out there together, and then 6-7 months later, I moved in with Brian Claybrook. And we were living there, and, I don't know if it's unusual for a skater, but I didn't know anyone else at that time who was also wanting to go the academic route and look into college. There were people that, maybe I'll go to college one day or something. But I also felt like maybe it was also pressure from people I knew and people in my family or whatever. It was that's also something you should probably do. And so I was going to City College, San Francisco. And so I had this balance of odd jobs with working in a photo, a Kodak photo development place or even Kinko's or something like that. And then I would skate a whole lot. And then at the same time, I was I have to balance it out with something else, something academic too. So I started to take classes at City College. I'd been in community college in Austin too, ACC, before that. So I was this kind of slow snail pace, adding the classes that you needed to get a bachelor's. But even that wasn't enough. I wanted to add a 4th element to it. And it had to be more gritty or more real life or more hands-on or something. And then this opportunity came up where through my stepdad's relatives, that I could go for 4-5 months to Florida and learn everything about boating, become a certified captain. And I got bit by it. Like I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I can do this brief break from my academic studies and skating, dude. I already knew then that I really have to give it all. Just like an actor, man, you probably have to be there just forever and hope for that break. And I guess I was, I don't know, quote unquote, smart enough to realize that. And the deal was that I moved out to this place, little tiny town in Florida, not far from Tampa, I want to say. And people like Navy SEALs and stuff would be trained there too. So it was a legit school that would help people in seamanship. And I was sort of a weird kind of addition to this, right? I'm getting in there with these guys. There's like a class of like 18 people, and they're about my age. And they're trying as hard as they can to become first mate or maybe even captain on like a private boat down there. And I'm sitting there like, I was like super into Beethoven at that time. And I'd like fall asleep. We had a roommate, right? So you lived in a room with another dude. And this guy was like he's awesome, man. He's like the typical frat boy. He was really a frat, but like super nice too. And I just remember one of the favorite memories was that I would put on Walter Gieseking's like Beethoven recordings, the sonatas, and I would listen to them every night before I went to sleep. And by the end of that period, the guy was like, "Man, this shit's awesome, you know, like this is dope, man. Let's throw that some on again, you know, like Moonlight Sonata, all that stuff."
Josh. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if so, are you wanting more road stories? Well, good news. I've got you covered. Consider becoming a patron. You'll have access to loads of great bonus stories that there just wasn't time for. And you'll be supporting a truly independent podcast. Find the link in the show notes. And thanks. Now back to the show.
I went to this school for about 4 months, and it was hard. A lot of theory and a lot of practical exams where you would take boats out in the ICC there in Florida on the Intercoastal Waterways, and like you would have to learn how to navigate in all kinds of weather scenarios. And we learned how to use a sextant to navigate the stars by, do all this technical stuff that I've also since forgotten. But in the afternoons in Florida, and I don't know after climate change and how things have changed down there, but literally almost at clockwork, every afternoon a rainstorm would come for 45 minutes. So it'd be really hot, and then this rainstorm would blow in, cool everything down, and then go away again. And then we would be like, wow, okay, the rain's over. What are we going to do? And a lot of those guys would be like, let's go get a bag of these oysters and break them open and then buy some beer. And I was like, all right. I think I was 20, 21 maybe. And they were too, right? Some of them were even underage. So someone would have to go buy, a case of natural light ice. There's Coors Light, right? And then there's like Bud Light. And down there we had natural light ice. We would drink this beer, and I would eat peanut butter and Rice-A-Roni to save money. And I gained probably 12 pounds, 15, 20 pounds maybe even. But the point of all of this is, at the end of that study, there was a chance for me to do further like ASA certifications, so American Sailing Association. And I wanted to do some extended sailing, and we sailed to the Bahamas. And so we took a 38-foot sloop called the Shady Lady. This beautiful, like cool boat. We would sail there. It'd take 24 hours. And we had an instructor with us, actually an instructor and an assistant with us who would help us. And we had to navigate our way over to the Bahamas under full sail, no motors. If you have a motor boat there, you can go to the Bahamas in like 2.5 hours. But under full sail, it's like 24 hours or something like that, with small storms and a pod of dolphins. Yeah, maybe it's a pod. So we saw that once. And then above all, like I just finished this book, Kon-Tiki by Thor Heyerdahl. He's like a Norwegian guy who wrote about his trip across the Pacific on like a balsa wood raft in the 40s. And he was talking about flying fish and how the flying fish that they would just every morning wake up on their raft. He was like, it was impossible for us to starve on our trip. It was like a 3-month thing. It was impossible for us to starve because every morning we would just go get these flying fish up off the deck and fry them up. And we saw all those kind of flying fish on our way to Bahamas as well. So we landed in the Bahamas, and we were supposed to be there for 4 days. And during the day, we would go out and do our maneuvers to try to get these certifications. But every night, as 20-year-olds do, we would go out on the town. The captain, he would go off and drink his cocktails with the people he knew from the town. And the assistant guy, he was probably like in his 60s then. He would probably go to bed. And I just remember the first night, so it was 4 nights, right? The first night, we had a few beers and then a cocktail or something like that, something rum-based thing, and went to bed and had a mild hangover the next day. And then every night it escalated. The second night we went out and just split a bottle of white rum between us. I think the fourth guy stayed behind. He never wanted to do this, but 3 of us would go out and split this bottle of rum, and we emptied it, right? And that was heavier than the first night, by far, right? But the second and third night, right? Let's just get 2 this time. And so we got 2, and those disappeared. And I can honestly can't remember the second and third nights that well. Not because I blacked out, but just because nothing interesting really happened. On the final night, just before we're having to sail back the following morning at, by the way, 8 a.m. or something like that, we were like, yeah, we had our 2, let's get the third. But all the places had closed. And it was like a weird downtown kind of port city with touristy places that you could go buy souvenirs. And all those places were closed. So we found this guy, this taxi driver. And we're like, hey man, can you help us find like a third bottle? And he's like, yeah, I know some places. And we drove. And by that time we're very drunk and everything's very murky and it's getting dark. And we start out on like these really long stretches where although there are fences, it's nothing but green everywhere on both sides. No obvious sign of life anywhere. So we're out there in the middle of the night with this taxi driver, and I'm sitting bitch in the back seat, and I don't feel very good either. And it's rare that I've been in this situation where you want to throw up in a car. It's very rare. I mean, you could probably, I don't know, I can only count maybe 3 or 4 times that I've been in that situation, but it's the most unpleasant. You don't want to ruin this guy's car, and it's just a stranger, and you're also sitting between 2 friends, so you don't want to, And so I just preempted and said, hey man, I'm going to get sick. Can you pull over? And it was a little bit hectic, but he found a spot on the side of the road and pulled over, and I got out, and yeah, I divulged all of the things that I had imbibed. What made this whole event interesting, most people are like, who cares, dude? Everyone's done that. The weird thing is that my friends got out with me, and we were all standing around, and I was in kind of the center of this fiasco. And I look up, and I'm surrounded by 8 or 9 locals that just encircled me. And they were standing like maybe with a 2-3 meter distance from where I was, just watching me throw up. They didn't look unfriendly, but it was so murky and so hard, like in that state, to know what the intentions of other people are, that I had a slight fear factor in me. I didn't know what they wanted. And, we're out in the middle of nowhere. 3 of these entitled white kids from Florida out there that are drunk out of their minds, and maybe they got money, whatever, I don't know. I was just like, damn, dude, this was a mistake. And but the taxi guy, he was like, no, these guys are all right. It's okay. And I had spun around and looked, and I just didn't know what was about to happen. And this guy kind of like stepped in for us, and he knew we were all right. And I think that's a kind of a theme in my life has always been that I've been quite lucky in those kind of scenarios. I don't know what it is. Do you believe in auras? Maybe I have a good one. And so that was gnarly to be standing there, kind of a sobering thing. I honestly do not know how I got back to the boat. I really don't. I think the taxi driver took us back. And then, like I said, that next morning, it was time to sail back in like 95-degree sunshine. It's at the end of the summer, right? 24 hours on a boat that's rocking. I have pretty good work ethic, actually, but I lay on the deck of the boat the whole way home. And the assistant guy, the grumpy guy, he was like, man, you smell horrible, and I really want to throw you over the side of this boat right now. And he was kind of a jerk, but honestly, he's telling the truth, right? I laid down in the sunlight for probably 10 hours. And so when we got ashore, I knew that I was sunburnt, and I was so glad to be there. And then my friend who lived in Maryland, I needed to get up there too to visit some other friends, drove me up with him. And I don't know, man, respect for the sun, respect for radiation, but I've never been sunburnt like that. And it wasn't like the flaky kind of thing. My whole head, my whole face swelled up, like really a lot. I was bright red. Have you ever had a sunburn like that where it actually swells? All of that seen together, it was like an adventure. It was this need for me to balance an academic and sort of skate city life with the mundane small end jobs. It was something more hands-on, and I definitely got a plethora of experiences, but also have room to make mistakes like that too.
I want to thank Chris for sharing his experience. Be sure to check out my Patreon. Along with all the great bonus stories, I've started posting my personal stories, past and present, from the long, strange trip that is my life. This podcast is created and produced by me, Josh Caldwell. Music by Visual Aid, my side music project. General support and copywriting by Miranda Caldwell. And if you know someone who you think might enjoy this show, send them this episode. The support really helps. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come back next time.